A lot of people ask me this question: what is the curriculum we followed when we homeschooled our children? I must tell you this little experience we had. Initially, like a typical mainstream parent, we thought that we should have a timetable. Okay, so we had five children actually, with us, three of our own and two of our sister. And the last one was, I think, around 3 years old, and the eldest one was 16 years old when we started the homeschooling in Coimbatore, about 2004 or 2005 or something like that. We had a timetable. We said that we would like to teach languages, so we thought mother tongue would be important to teach. So we had Tamil, we had English, we had also science subjects, we had history, geography, we had a few other interesting crafts and other things. So we really put a daily timetable, and I think it took all of one day to realize that children have their own timetable in their mind, and they have a mind of their own, and it works in different directions in different days, and not a single day we could sustain with that timetable, and we just went completely crazy trying to manage the children and manage the timetable. So for about a week we experimented with the timetable, and then we decided that okay, that's it. To hell with the timetable, okay. The whole thing is to give freedom for children to realize themselves. Why then put such restrictions on the children? So we threw the whole thing out of the window. So we would then ask the children, what would you like to learn this today? And then one child will say, I would like to learn Tamil. One child would say, I would like to learn some crafts, some English, some sports, some karate, and stuff like that. So as each child came up with his or her need, we then would find who is the best person to facilitate that learning process. And if we were not good enough, for instance, in karate, none of us were capable of. So we found a karate master. Okay. So then some child said she wanted to learn dance. Some child she wanted to learn music, flute or violin, or so to sing, art, some kind of painting and stuff like that. So each of this we found somebody who would take our child as a special kind of tuition classes outside of their regular working hours, and so we would take them around to 2-3 such places, but mostly they were alone. They were left alone, rather. They were not alone as in being lonely, but we were there with them, but they were on their own. They had to learn things, they had to pick up stuff, they had to learn things. But certain things like Tamil, for instance, they couldn't really learn, because you need to learn the script, you need to learn how to read it. So I I was chosen to be the person to teach them Tamil, because that being my favorite subject. So foolishly I started teaching them alphabets and words, and they started rebelling. Children said, this is too much, I don't want to memorize so many words, I don't want to write. Tell us a story. Okay. So I said, okay, that seems to be a nice thing to do. I also love to tell stories. So I picked up a book. It's a classic in our days, it's a beautiful book. It's called Tuppariyam Sambu. It's a hilarious book. So I would sit with that book and I would just generally read it. But the language is a slightly dated language, about 40-50 years ago than the other languages. So I had to kind of modernize that book in a way that the children can easily follow. So it became, I was kind of transliterating, so to say, from old Tamil to new Tamil, paraphrasing, or so to say. And then we started, I started putting some drama to that, and I started adding some character to that. So the children started to enjoy it. So one by one, the child would come around me, sit next to me, and look into the book, and then they will stop me and say, what is this word? What does it mean? And then they had a book, and then they had a notebook and a pen. They would write 1 or 2 words, and that's how they learned Tamil. Okay, and that's, I think, how they learned English also, right? So they would ask one of us to read a book, and then Radha was good at that, and once in a while I will also sit and read a book aloud. I don't know if you've tried that. It's an extremely useful experience to just read a storybook aloud. Okay, so Sherlock Holmes was my favorite series of books. So I would sit and read it aloud. So some child will come and listen to it, and they will start laughing at some of my pronunciations because I'm a Tamilian by birth. So I didn't learn English. I did all my schooling in Tamil medium till my 10th standard or so. Then forced myself to speak in English. So even now I make some mistakes in certain pronunciations. So they will laugh at me because they didn't really go through that struggle that I went through, learning one language and shifting to another language. So that's fine, So you learn along with them. So stop and ask them questions. So the environment became a learning environment for all of us. Okay. For instance, nature. How did we learn about nature? We just went out of the house, into the gardens, into the park nearby, into the forest nearby, right? So we would then pick up something and we would ask, what is this? And we don't know. I scored 0 in botany in my 11th standard and in my 12th standard. So I really know nothing about botany, but going with the children, they got curious. So we had to discover. Okay. Similarly, you take a book and you ask, what is the spelling of this particular word? Nobody would know. Neither would I. Many words I wouldn't know the spelling at all. But the good news was that we quickly figured out that if we know how to refer to a dictionary, that's enough. Okay. Even today, I think most of those, great scholars in English are not good with spellings. Okay, that's my personal belief. I may be wrong in that, but I'm certainly not good in spellings. Okay, so I depend a lot on automated tools when I write on my internet or my software on a computer. So why should it be different for my child? Why should I expect my child to memorize grammar or talk about grammar? It's really, I'm allergic to grammar. Something that I never learned either in Tamil or in English. Even today, I don't know grammar. Okay, I really don't know the structure of how a sentence should be formed. But I think it doesn't matter. What matters is it is a language that you need to use as a medium to communicate. Am I able to speak? Is it understandable? Do I understand what the other person is saying? Do I read a book? Is it understandable for me? That's fine. Okay. So as you do this more and more and more, you pick up stuff. Okay, you pick up structure. So that's the power of the mind, right? It creates maps of its own, and that map will stay with you forever. I remember, for instance, my chemistry master in my school days. I was also allergic to chemistry. I was allergic to most subjects, in fact. Something that made you memorize and read and rote system. So I never liked it. So chemistry is something that I never liked because there's so many formulas to remember. So my chemistry teacher came to me and then said, "What do you like? What is it that you like?" I said, "I like rhythm. I like percussion. I like that thala." I said, "Okay, very good. So I will make a sound out of this formula. Will you remember it?" I said, "That sounds interesting. Let's do it." So I still remember the methane preparation formula, which I studied in my 12th standard. Chatrikuna plus Navo gives Natukotri plus Chi4. Okay, it's a very nice thing that a friend of mine taught, my neighbor friend of mine taught, and along with the chemistry teacher, we were both learning in different levels. So it's CH3COO plus NaOH gives Na2CO3 plus CH4. CH4 is methane, right? So I still remember this formula, right? After something like about 35 years of going through that. So that's the power of the mind. So the mind learns the way it is comfortable with. Some children learn through the ears by listening. Okay, some children learn through talking. So some children learn through the eyes. Some children have to learn through their hands. Kinesthetic children. My last daughter is one such person. Her brain is in her hands, I believe, right? So each of us experience world differently. Sometimes it's combination of faculties that come into play when you want to learn. So you need to figure out what is best way for a child to learn something. Okay, so you have to make the process of learning enjoyable. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you learn or not. What matters is, do you enjoy the learning process? Okay, it doesn't matter whether you know the scripts, you know the grammar, spelling. What's important is, do you know where to look for spelling? Do you know where to look for grammar? Do you know how to solve problems? You don't have to know the solution to all the problems. How many problems can I solve? I'm 51 years old now. I don't think I can solve even 0.00001% of the world's problems, or my own problems for that matter. But the key is not to know the problems or become an expert in solving a problem, but to actually figure out a process of solving a problem. So therefore, if you learn to learn, your life is made. Okay, that I believe is the fantastic curriculum for the children. That's what we follow at home.